And when Ibrahim sent me a mail asking me to speak about the nights of endoscopy, I thought it was a strange idea. So I nevertheless did a presentation on the nights of endoscopy. And what is nice? Nice is the chivalry, you know, that it's the Middle Age. And when I look in the dictionary on the definition of the knights, it's a military order made of noble warriors who want to promote Christianity. So I'm the pure atheist, so I can tell you that it's clearly not really my task. It's also a feudal institution which gathered the fighters on horseback, then the nobles, and which was reached by the ceremony of the dubbing. The dubbing is when the apprenti, the companions, the écuyers become the knights. So it's still not really that, and surely not the way to the initial definition of chivalry. But when you look at the definition of the knights in the literature, it's also defined as generous and romantic hardiness. So it might be then a little bit closer to what I've seen in my career of old men in the development of endoscopy. The hardiness is probably essential, and the generosity is clearly essential. And when we speak about the night of endoscopy, what I would imagine, of course, this is my view, and there are probably many other groups of chivalry around the world, but from what the path I had in my life, those people who have helped in the development of the promotion of endoscopy are usually courageous. They have this kind of hardiness, but with caution, because the protection of the patient is paramount. They like to train companions. They travel too much. My wife is always saying that. But they have to become world citizens, because we are working in a small group of people. My son told me when I was a little bit younger, in your group you are a little bit like Mike Jagger, but don't forget that there are 10,000 less people who are interested in what you do than for Mike Jagger. So we have to travel a lot because we are part of a small community. There must be some imagination. There is the need to build networks, like in this meeting to which I participate for the 25th time. So it's part of our networks. But in addition, and this was probably not really in the value of the chivalry of the Middle Age, there must be respect to everyone, tolerance, being open-minded, because the medicine in this place is probably not the same as in another continent, in another place, and it has to be adapted to what are the possibilities and the opportunity. There is an area where you have to take the opportunities and to be generous and enthusiastic when there is an opportunity to develop something new. The novelty has been paramount in endoscopy over the last 40 years, because this practice has been completely developed in 60 years. The first flexible endoscopy took place in 1958. And this is probably one of the qualities of the people I met and I respect, is that most of them have the capability to stay humble. So just a small picture that I took to my office from the end of the last century. This is a picture where you have some of the pioneers of endoscopy. This gentleman on the right there is Irskovich, the guy who did the first flexible endoscopy in 1958. You have Klassen and Kawai, the first sphincterotomy. You have Jerry Way, involved in colonoscopy. Lipsuendra, the inventor of stenting. You have Peter Cotton, the guy who promoted the professionalization of endoscopy. My master, Michel Kremer, who did the first pancreatic endotherapy, and some young people in the back who were there as visitors at that time. And the message to be humble is never forget that this period of your life will last only for 20 years. And you see, 20 years later, this is the same group where the young people have become a little bit older, where you have new people, but you see also that there are many people who disappeared and who died, who retired. So this is the most important message from those who want to be knight in endoscopy, is that they have to teach. Because if they teach properly, they have to remind that the people that who they teach might become their doctor when they will be old. And this is probably the only message to maintain the practice of endoscopy at a high level, but also to maintain the mindset of being a promoter of the development of endoscopy. Just a few examples. You see, those people, Kawai and Klassen, have been thought to be the inventors, the first people doing a sphincterotomy. In fact, the guy who did the first sphincterotomy is Nakajima, but Kawai was his boss and took all the benefit for him. So there are two kinds of knights. Demling was generous, and Klassen did the first sphincterotomy and was recognized as the first person to do the sphincterotomy. Kawai was probably much less generous, and he didn't recognize Nakajima as the guy who did the first sphincterotomy in Japan. So it's very important. You have to be honest and also honest with your coworkers. If we look at another inventor, another person who spent his life in developing endoscopy is Nipsuendra, the guy who did the first biliary stenting. And I can tell you that at that time, in the end of the 70s, when the first biliary stenting was practiced, there were many people who tried to do stenting. I remember in the Bible that we have in our department, my boss who was writing, we tried to put a catheter. We left the catheter in the Bible, but it fell down because there was no flap. So there were 3 or 4. All together, we were working at the same time, at the same group. But Nipsuendra has all his life this quality of being a knight which innovates, always new ideas, keeping caution to protect the patient, and is willing to teach, training people in his own department, but also training people abroad by doing live demonstration and lectures. So very quickly, it has been considered as a need to do some demonstration. The first demonstration were not live demonstration like those you will have next Saturday or Sunday. There were small demonstrations. This one was in New York. You see Cotton, Hoy, the guy who did the first ERCP in Japan, Klassen and McRae. They were demonstrating in a small group of people the first ERCPs. At that time, in Europe, there were 5 people doing ERCPs. And these 5 people create their own school, which is also important. And some of these schools survived, which is even more important. And I think that the chivalry of endoscopy, there's not only people, but the real success is when they succeed in creating a school. So this is some of the pioneers. You may remember some of them. Some have participated to this meeting. I will not go too much into the details. The only thing that, as I told you, I'm very proud of is being part of a school where my master was able to create a school. Guido Costamagna and myself, we are from the same school. We have been educated by the same teacher who was really one of the knights of endoscopy. And this kind of teaching is extremely important because it will give you, and this is also a teaching that we may have between us when we are speaking in a meeting like this, when we are communicating with you, Mr. Chairman, with the audience, is to discuss about what we do, but also to discuss about the respect we may have for our patient. And probably the major respect to do when you do innovation is to be careful about the complication. To understand that, of course, by being quite good in techniques, by being interested in technical development, there are many things that we can do. But there are many of these things that we shouldn't do. And I think the previous speech by Marc was really in this line. Of course, we can do everything. We can drain the bile duct through the mouth, through the anus if we want, but maybe we should not do that in all the cases. This is a very important message. And then we have also, then I will speak you a little bit about my experience, which was the second generation of the pioneers. We have been a few, and there are a few in this room. We have to value and admire your friends, those who have been able to create a teamwork. This is the example of Nagi Reddy and Diviere in Hyderabad, who start from scratch, who devoted their life to enthusiasm, generosity. Generosity is very important because all these people never worked for money. This is a message that the father of a friend gave me, is that if you are a physician, never try to be rich. Because if you are a physician, you will be an artisan. If you want to be rich, make a business. And many of these people have chosen to enjoy, to spend their life for their work. This is a choice. Of course, you can decide that it's not the choice that you make, but then to do innovation and to respect the other. And starting from a small apartment, these two people have been able to create the Asian Institute of Gastroenterology, which is, believe me or not, even considering the European and the American center, the best equipped and most active GI center in the world. This is not an hospital, this is a GI department. No? So when we speak about the value, how to value our friends, my message, this picture is from my office. These are people who were with me, the second generation of the pioneers, but I spent probably more time with them than with many of my coworkers, traveling everywhere, trying to work together and to spend time together. And it showed that beside this group of 4 people who are extremely close, Ibrahim is also there. And there are also other people who are part of our group who are even training some of our friends. And I just would like to show you this image that you have probably already seen. If you can start the movie. Is it possible to have a technical help? I would like to start. This is a movie that Marc and we did in 2003. I know to advance it a little bit. I can push there?
Yes.
Like this? Okay. That we did in 2003. So just to give you an idea, the first EUS guided drainage was done by Marc in 2000. I think I did the first EUS pancreatic drainage in 2002. So we were just 1 year later. And this is probably the way I see a little bit the idea of chivalry, because the knight has to be generous, but one of the major principles is to try to help each other. And you see that when you are abroad in a center which has not been educated for that, and you try this first procedure, which is the first live demonstration worldwide, this is extremely important to spend time to work together but I'm still not able to. Can you help me again, please? I would like to advance to the end.
To the end? Mm-hmm.
Just to there. Yeah. And then to show you the last part of the procedure, this is this kind of spirit. And I just recommend you, if you want to continue to develop your own activity and your teaching, to find the friends and the colleagues with whom you will be able to work in that way. The idea is not to show that you are better than the other. The idea is not to show that you are better than the host. The idea is to do together as much as you can to make a procedure successful for the benefit of the patient. If you understand that, even in a live demonstration, you will have understood the principle of a live demonstration. And if you find during a live demonstration that it's not fair and not ethical to do something, then you can just decide not to do it. And this is probably one of the main messages I would like to give you as an introduction to the live meeting that we will have tomorrow. And I know that in this particular department, these ethical concerns are very important. So just to show you how much we have been happy, I think that at the end you see that we are very happy because we have been successful in this procedure. So this is just, I just want to, because we speak about the night, to speak to you about some of my heroes. And we will even make a special session to speak about the experience. And you see, for these heroes, I try to put a sentence which just defines which is the major thing that they brought into endoscopy. And I just invite you, if you have time, to come in Lisbon in February. There will be these very interesting lessons from the second generation of pioneers. So the path to chivalry in endoscopy, I would like to finish my talk by giving you, of course, I may be contradicted, and this is just a personal experience, but a few advice if you want to succeed in the ceremony of dubbing. If you are already a knight, this is not important. But if you are still considering yourself as an apprentice or a companion, then if you want to succeed in the ceremony of dubbing, then this is a few advice. That's the qualities for excelling in advanced training, but think about that. Of course, you must be technically skilled. This is important. But you see that having your practice, which is patient-oriented, is as important as your skill. This is an inquiry that we did among most of the teachers worldwide. But the thing which is the most important is that you will never be a knight if you disregard the patient welfare, or if you lack of ethics, or if you lack of taking your responsibility. And you see that finally the lack of skill is not very important for disqualifying. And this is probably one thing to keep in mind. We are physicians, and then we have to respect patients, colleagues, fellows, nurses, industry partners, and finally the small plus, which makes that you know some nights of endoscopy and there are other nights of endoscopy that you don't know, is that there are some who are willing to promote research and to make research more paramount in order to help the progression of the discipline. Just a special word to my friend Jean Brier, who was an industry partner and a promoter of this meeting. And just as a reminder, teamwork means working with other physicians, but means also working with your assistant. You will never be in a center of reference if you are not working with assistants who are well-trained and who can help you in difficult situations. In difficult situations, having a good assistant is as important as having a good endoscopist, and more the situation is difficult, more the importance of the assistant is paramount. And then some qualities. Probably the major quality that you should keep in mind and repeat all the time is honesty. This is a painting which is in my office of my master, but this is the first reports of ERCP. When we started doing ERCP, I was not born, or I was still in the, no, I was born, but I was still in the high school in 1970. You see that the first report of ERCP, the big cross are failures. You see the failures, 1, 2, 3, 4. And even on the back, you see décès par excès de Valium. That means death because of giving too much diazepam. So this is the honesty in the report. Never believe that somebody is an expert if he tells you that he has 100% success and 0% success complication. This is not true. This is what we have to avoid, and we have to teach our fellows that we have to be honest in reporting what we do. Then probably the humility, and the humility is definitively not the quality of the endoscopists usually, but we can just remind Michelangelo. who was writing on the last masterpiece that he did at 88 years old, that he was still learning. And I can tell you that all around my life, I still feel that I'm learning something. And this will be my almost last slide with this picture that I like very much, which is not the picture of a battle of chivalry, so this is probably not very much for the knight and the warriors, but probably a very nice picture of the doctor. You see that the doctor is looking at this child while the family is very anxious. And what you see in this doctor, who was not very equipped with a lot of techniques, is that he looks at the child, he tries to use his science, but he also tries to find a solution, and obviously he has compassion. So in every discipline that we do in medicine and endoscopy is also an art, a science, and an empathy for the patient. And finally, the technical part that we have in the hands-on meeting is only a small part of the understanding of what we do. And finally, my last word will be, I don't know if he's there, but for Ibrahim, as surely one of the knights of endoscopy of this generation. Thank you very much for your attention.